What would you do if, in the blink of an eye, the world you thought you knew suddenly fell apart? Imagine standing in a grand hall, cameras flashing, the eyes of millions upon you, and then seeing the person you love, someone who has always seemed invincible, collapse in front of you. For Prince William, this nightmare became reality in a way no one could have predicted. Kate Middleton, the Duchess of Cambridge, beloved by millions, suddenly went unconscious, and within hours, she was rushed to the hospital, slipping into a coma. The scene that unfolded was not only shocking, it was a human drama that exposed vulnerability, fear, and a side of royalty the public rarely sees. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It began like any other day in the public eye. Kate had been attending a series of charity events, smiling for photographers, exchanging pleasantries, and radiating the poise she had become famous for. But behind the polished appearance, something was amiss. Observers would later note subtle signs, moments where she seemed pale, her movements slightly sluggish, a faint look of discomfort that she hid behind her practiced smile. Few paid attention, and even fewer suspected that this was the calm before the storm. Hours later, as she entered a palace hall for a routine engagement, everything changed. Witnesses report that she suddenly stopped moving, her expression frozen, and then she crumpled to the floor. The room erupted into chaos. Security rushed forward, aides screamed, and Prince William, standing nearby, froze. It's difficult to imagine the panic that overtook him. The man who had faced decades of media scrutiny, who had been trained for diplomacy, composure, and leadership, now faced a personal crisis that no preparation could have equipped him for. He fainted. The image alone, a royal, second in line to the throne, collapsing in shock, is enough to send chills down anyone's spine. But fainting was only the beginning. Kate was immediately taken to the palace medical wing, where emergency doctors began frantic efforts to stabilize her. A helicopter was called, and within minutes, she was on her way to one of London's top hospitals. The journey was tense, punctuated by the sound of sirens, the rapid heartbeat of an emergency transport, and the constant worry of those who loved her most. For Prince William, the hours felt endless. Every minute was a test of patience, every second a question of whether the woman he had known as his partner, confidant, and soulmate would pull through. As the public began to catch wind of the emergency, social media erupted. Headlines screamed of royal crisis, Duchess in coma, and Prince William collapses in fear. The world speculated wildly. Was it a medical condition? Stress? Something more sinister? Rumors spread like wildfire, some claiming it was a simple fainting spell, others suggesting hidden illnesses, and a few even hinting at palace secrets that no one outside those walls could possibly understand. And yet, amid all this speculation, one truth remained undeniable. For the first time, the monarchy was not in control of the narrative. Inside the hospital, the atmosphere was nothing short of tense. Machines beeped rhythmically, monitors glowed with vital signs, and a team of doctors worked tirelessly to assess her condition. The room was a mix of sterile efficiency and human emotion, the latter impossible to mask completely. Prince William, pale and shaken, remained close, holding her hand when allowed, whispering words that only she could hear. There were moments of hope, fleeting glimmers where her pulse steadied, and then terrifying moments where monitors spiked and dipped, keeping everyone on edge. Questions began to multiply. What caused this sudden collapse? Was it a neurological episode, a cardiovascular event, or something entirely unexpected? What had Kate been experiencing before the public noticed? Headaches, fatigue, moments of confusion that were brushed off as normal? And crucially, how would the palace handle this? Royal protocol is precise, often rigid, and yet emergencies like this do not follow rules. Every decision had weight, every action scrutinized, not just by medical professionals, but by the eyes of the world. The palace itself was a scene of controlled panic. Advisors, staff, and senior royals were scrambling to manage the crisis, drafting statements, coordinating hospital communications, and attempting to maintain some sense of dignity and calm in the face of an event that was anything but calm. Insiders would later reveal that the corridors were tense, whispers of fear mingled with speculation, and the usual order of palace life had been completely disrupted. Even in a place accustomed to crises, this was different. This was personal. This was raw. Outside, the public watched with bated breath. News outlets, social media platforms, and casual observers alike were glued to updates, seeking any scrap of information about Kate's condition. Memes began circulating, some irreverent, others genuinely sympathetic, but all reflecting the global fascination with the sudden fragility of the seemingly untouchable royal family. And then, as details slowly emerged, the narrative became more complex. Reports of Prince William fainting added layers to the story. People were seeing not just a medical emergency, but a deeply human moment of fear and vulnerability. A man groomed for leadership, under the relentless glare of public scrutiny, now faced helplessness in its purest form. Yet, amid the chaos, there were hints of mystery. Sources close to the palace spoke cautiously, revealing that initial medical assessments had left more questions than answers. Tests were inconclusive, symptoms were atypical, and the timeline of events seemed almost surreal. Could a perfectly healthy young woman, in peak condition, suddenly slip into a coma with no warning? Was this simply a medical anomaly, or were there factors at play that no one yet understood? The intrigue deepened. Every detail, every observation, every fleeting glance and action was being examined, both inside the palace and by the global public. And then came the most unnerving realization. No one truly knew what would happen next. Kate's condition remained critical, and even the most experienced physicians could not provide certainty. Prince William, meanwhile, was grappling not only with fear for her life, but with the weight of public expectation, media scrutiny, and the knowledge that millions were watching his every reaction. The combination of personal anxiety and public pressure created a perfect storm. A human drama that transcended headlines, one that would shape the perception of the monarchy for years to come. The question for all of us, and perhaps the most haunting of all, is this: what does it take to survive when life's fragility is exposed so publicly, when fear, love, and duty collide in a way that cannot be rehearsed or controlled? Prince William's fainting was not just a dramatic moment, it was a symbol. It reminded the world that behind crowns and palaces, even the strongest among us are human. And as the hours stretched into an uncertain night, everyone was left to wonder, would Kate recover? What secrets, pressures, and unknown factors had led to this moment? And, perhaps most urgently, what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What does a day look like when it begins like any other but ends as the start of a nightmare? For Kate Middleton, it began with her usual precision, a carefully orchestrated morning that included wardrobe choices, briefing papers, and a schedule that would leave most people exhausted before lunch. But no one could have predicted that by the end of the day, the Duchess would be fighting for her life in a hospital bed, while Prince William faced a panic unlike anything he had experienced before. Kate had started the morning with a visit to a local charity, smiling for photographers and interacting with children, her poise impeccable. Observers later described her demeanor as perfectly composed, but there were subtle signs that something was off. A brief hesitation before standing, a faint flush across her face, a hand brushing her forehead that might have seemed casual to a casual observer but was noted by those who knew her well. It was easy to dismiss in the moment. Royals are trained to endure long days, to mask fatigue, to project confidence no matter what. But sometimes, even the strongest masks begin to crack. As she moved from one engagement to the next, Kate's schedule remained packed. Afternoon tea with charity organizers, a brief meeting with palace staff, and then a public event that would be broadcast live. Every step, every smile, every handshake was recorded, replayed, and analyzed. To the public, everything seemed normal. To those watching closely, however, a tension was building, a sense that Kate was pushing herself too far, that the pressures of public life were exacting a toll that few ever witnessed. And then it happened. It was a subtle moment at first. Kate paused mid-step, the smile fading slightly, her eyes blinking rapidly as if adjusting to a sudden strain. Those around her, aides and security, immediately noticed. But in the midst of a crowded room, with cameras flashing and well-wishers cheering, It was difficult to intervene without creating a scene. Minutes later, she collapsed. One moment she was standing, composed and regal. The next, she was on the floor, unconscious, and the world seemed to pause. The room erupted. Security guards rushed forward, trying to protect her from the fall. Medical staff stationed at the venue moved quickly, assessing her pulse and attempting to revive her. Prince William, standing only a few feet away, froze. He had been trained for crisis situations, emergencies, public confrontations, unexpected events, but nothing could have prepared him for this. Seeing the woman he loved collapse before his eyes. And then, in a moment that has since been replayed in countless retellings, he fainted. The irony was cruel and inescapable. Here was a man known for his composure, his courage, and his presence of mind, now vulnerable, overwhelmed by fear. For the staff and bystanders, the scene was chaotic. Cameras continued to flash, a reflexive response from the press that seemed almost unnatural in the gravity of the moment. People whispered, gasped, and some even recorded the scene on their phones. But behind the flashes, the real story was unfolding in private. The fear, the adrenaline, the panic. Prince William was now the one in need of support, but there was no time. Kate needed immediate medical attention, and every second counted. The response was swift. Kate was moved to a medical room within the venue, where staff stabilized her as much as possible before arranging emergency transport. The journey to the hospital was tense, marked by sirens, rapid conversation, and the silent prayers of those close to her. Prince William, pale and shaken, remained by her side whenever he was allowed. The normally composed prince was a man stripped of his public armor, facing the raw reality of life and death. The contrast between his public image and private panic was stark, and it underscored the human side of a family often seen as distant or untouchable. While the ambulance sped through London streets, questions began to swirl. What had caused the collapse? Could it have been prevented? What signs had been missed in the hours and days leading up to this moment? Royal insiders would later reveal that there had been subtle indications, headaches, fatigue, moments of dizziness, that were brushed aside as normal stress from an intense public life. But hindsight, as always, is cruel. Every overlooked symptom now seemed like a warning, every small discomfort a precursor to disaster. And then there was the matter of public perception. Within minutes of the incident, news outlets began reporting the emergency. Social media exploded. Speculation ran wild, as it often does in moments of uncertainty. Some reports focused on the medical aspects, others on Prince William's fainting, and a few even floated more sinister theories. The palace, ever aware of the power of narrative, scrambled to control the messaging, issuing carefully worded statements that confirmed an emergency without revealing details. But in an age of instant news and viral speculation, controlling the story is almost impossible. The public reaction was immediate and intense. Supporters sent messages of hope, while detractors speculated on the causes. Headlines demanded answers. Was this a sudden illness? The result of stress? Or something more secretive, hidden behind palace walls? Rumors spread that Kate had been under extraordinary pressure, balancing royal duties, family obligations, and the relentless gaze of the public. Others suggested underlying health conditions, long kept private, now potentially exposed. And amidst all this, the image of Prince William fainting became a focal point, humanizing the monarchy in a way that few had ever imagined. Inside the hospital, the tension was palpable. Medical staff moved quickly, assessing her condition with a sense of urgency that matched the public drama unfolding outside. Monitors beeped, alerting doctors to fluctuations in vital signs. Every small change was scrutinized, every response measured. Prince William remained nearby, caught between his instinct to stay close and the need to give professionals space to work. The hours stretched long, marked by uncertainty and anxiety. Even seasoned medical personnel admitted that the suddenness of the collapse, followed by the coma, presented a perplexing challenge. And yet, despite the immediate fear, there were glimpses of hope. Initial readings suggested that her condition was stable enough to allow for intensive monitoring and further testing. But stability in these situations is always tentative. The difference between recovery and a permanent setback can hinge on a single, unpredictable moment. It was a race against time, and the outcome remained unknown. Every heartbeat, every breath, every slight movement of Kate's hand was a source of tension, both for those in the room and for millions observing from afar. But just as hope flickered in the dim hospital room,